So today, the hope is we'll have that conversation. You'll get a better view of what's happening globally. We're going to bring it all the way home, and then we're going to talk to a company that's based here. So again, from my luck and fortune, the panelists that you would already know, we're going to start off with Dave Taylor with the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. In my eyes, he'll create the biggest target, talking about it from a standpoint of what's going on worldwide. But then Katie gets to bring us home and actually talk about it from a Berks County standpoint. And this is by far, for me personally, was the richest conversation that we had, understanding all that's going on here. Not to take away, Ms. Pam, from richness, but there's no doubt that when you hear what's happening and then you bring it home to a company like UGI or UGI Energy Services, you start to see the impact that those decisions have locally. So again, for those of you who are here, thank you for taking the time out. I believe we have upwards of about 60 people online. This is our first event doing this hybrid. Historically, we always did them in person. Now we had to move with COVID to doing them online. But here we are having our first for 2022, having this happen both online and in person. So I thank you for that. David, I'm going to roll to you. I know I'll give you the hook at your time.
Yes.
But I know you're not going to need it. So
yes, please.
I tell you what, guys, before we get started here, can somebody from Omega give a quick safety moment as to what to do in case of an emergency?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Pat. So, first of all, welcome to our training center. This is exciting to see this many people here. And, George had mentioned with COVID, everything was typically in person, and then we went hybrid, and now it's great to see everybody again. But, from a safety perspective is these are the exit doors. If there's any emergency, you can exit there. We also have the restrooms that are located over there. As you can see, this is a secure facility, so many of you probably were wondering when you came in, why did you have to give your driver's license? And that's one of the things that we have to do is just document who has been in the building, and it's just due to the security. So Omega Systems is a managed service provider for IT. We're partners with NTEC, so when Rudy came to me today, we're looking for a facility. I said, well, you're partners with us, so why don't you come over here and you can get the opportunity to not only to use this space, use the facility, but then also give you the opportunity that later, if anybody would like a tour of the facility, we have a private data center that is downstairs. I can show you the cloud. And then if there's any other times that you have any questions, you can either direct them to myself, Jason Zimmerman, or we have Matt Peters. He's one of our new business development people.
Also, quasi camera guy.
So absolutely. So thank you, everybody, and enjoy the presentation.
All right, outstanding. Thanks very much. I'm David Taylor. I'm the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. I started at PMA in 1997, which they tell me is 25 years ago. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but here I am. Thanks very much to Coterra for putting this together. Thanks to Omega Systems for hosting us. And thanks especially to my teammates from the Greater Reading Chamber, UGI Energy Services. It's great to be here together. So the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, founded in 1909 by Berks County industrialist Joseph Grundy, is the statewide not-for-profit trade organization representing the people who make things. And our mission is to, well, I don't want to disrespect my lawmaker friends here. I joke that our mission is to minimize the stupidity in Harrisburg, with key emphasis said minimize, not eliminate, just minimize. And our friends here are among the very good folks who are helping us to push for a pro-growth agenda, because we need competitiveness. In a free country, in a free economy, all of these economic decisions are voluntary. So our decision makers need to work to make it the smart business decision for people to choose to invest and hire and locate and operate and expand here in the Commonwealth rather than one of our competitor states. And, our mission with manufacturing is to help our decision makers to understand and appreciate the way that manufacturing is the engine that drives our economy. It's the sector that adds the most value. It's the sector that has the strongest multiplier effect on economic growth. It pays some of the best wages and benefits in the marketplace. And of course, also that your manufacturers in your community, they're a major local taxpayer. So you're talking about taxpayers that sustain the tax base for your school district and all the other things that we need to have quality of life in our communities. Pennsylvania manufacturing is $92 billion worth of value added year over year. It's over 500,000 jobs directly on the plant floor. But that core manufacturing activity sustains millions of additional Pennsylvania jobs, as I said, in supply chains, in distribution networks, and through the vendors of industrial services. So with our mission of manufacturing and manufacturing competitiveness, that, no matter what it is that you're making, you're going through a multi-stage process to yield a finished good. In the course of doing that, two things always happen. Number one, you're consuming enormous amounts of energy and you're deploying some kind of chemical process. And that's what brings us to the subject today about energy, that without energy from, especially energy from native Pennsylvania energy sources of coal, oil, natural gas, and the chemistry that is made possible by those inputs, without those, we essentially revert to the kind of civilization that the Native Americans lived. That it's only through energy from hydrocarbons and chemistry from those same petrochemicals that we can have human thriving and modern civilization. That there are 4 essential inputs for modern civilization that you cannot have without hydrocarbons and the petrochemicals that come from them: steel, cement, ammonia, and plastics. And I want to talk just for a moment about ammonia, which is a necessary precursor for chemical fertilizers for agriculture. Without petrochemical-based chemical fertilizers, 3 billion human beings would starve. That chemical fertilizers are so ubiquitous, and this is a stunning fact. Half of the nitrogen in your body is synthetic. The food supply that keeps us alive and healthy and thriving depends on those petrochemicals. You talk about plastics and all the things that plastics do to, make our lives clean and efficient and healthy and safe and sanitary. Without plastics, none of those things could happen. And, again, Lieutenant Governor Fetterman, God bless him. I'm so glad that he was able to get the necessary emergency health care to save his life and to prevent damage from that stroke, and that he was fitted with a pacemaker defibrillator. Every last thing in that surgical suite was made with chemistry powered by energy from hydrocarbons. The plastic and the tools that made the pacemaker defibrillator that's keeping him safe, all of those things were made possible with this energy, with this chemistry. And so this is why, for the benefit of our very high and ever rising quality of life, that we want to maximize domestic production of energy, Pennsylvania production of energy, to bring to bear these forces so that we can have more of it. Obviously, as an advocate for manufacturing, this is Pennsylvania jobs. We need to have affordable, available, abundant, reliable energy, market priced. We need to have the inputs for the chemistry that make possible all these different manufacturing processes. And that if we do it right, it can be Pennsylvania jobs all the way down. We can create the conditions whereby you'll have an actual economic reason to want to invest and locate and hire and operate in Pennsylvania rather than in one of our competitor states. And then this moves us to the next level of discussion, which is what George hinted at, that energy production and secure supply chains are vital for national security. That energy production is an expression of national power. and that until the last 2 years, that a pro-production, pro-deployment agenda at the national level helped America to briefly achieve actual energy independence, which has been a goal of our country since the 1970s. Now, we've had a change in policy, which has reverted the situation. But, as we're seeing with the Russians and Vladimir Putin, and the way that his energy policy has entangled the governments in Europe, which has hampered their ability to respond to Putin's invasion of Ukraine and the plunder and conquest of that country, that the Russians recognize that these energy relationships, if you are exporting energy, and in fact, Putin has deployed a domestic fleet of nuclear reactors to power the domestic Russian economy so that their resources of oil, coal, and natural gas, more of that is available for them to export to foreign countries to turn into hard capital to fund Putin's regime. And, again, we should want to maximize domestic American energy, not only for the good of our own citizens and our own economy, but also to strengthen America on the world stage. I'd also note that our current economic crisis being driven by inflation, high energy prices make inflation worse, just as it was in the 1970s, because, you talk about the manufacturing process, you talk about, every single step of production requires energy. All of the inputs that have to be delivered to your manufacturing facility, brought by a truck, energy, energy, energy. Every last thing that's sold in a store, brought by a truck. And so when you have record high diesel fuel prices, all of that gets layered through the cost of basic goods, which results in higher prices for consumers. If you want to fight inflation, which is a thief that steals from everyone, you fight inflation by maximizing domestic energy production. And again, this leads us to what really should be the focus of our day today, which is the opportunity from the Marcellus Shale play. That, and again, forgive me if I'm telling you stuff that you folks already know, but the natural gas play in the Marcellus is everything that's under the Allegheny Mountains and north and west. It's present in New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and only the westernmost county of Maryland. Maryland and New York State have bans on harvesting the energy. So the energy only being harvested in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia. If Pennsylvania, Ohio, and West Virginia were an independent nation, we'd be the number 3 natural gas producing country in the world. That this is the Marcellus discovery is literally a world historic event, as big as opening the Panama Canal or splitting the atom or putting a man on the moon. And so in the northern tier, up where Coterra works, the natural gas comes out of the ground as pure methane. It doesn't have to be separated or processed. It can go straight in the pipe to go for domestic consumption, for industrial furnaces, or for electricity generation. And also just to note that there are a lot of manufacturing processes that require a very high temperature point that can only be achieved through an industrial furnace with natural gas. So people who want to electrify the economy, they don't know what they're talking about, because again, these inputs are necessary for making a lot of things. And again, just to finish the thought, so the natural gas comes out of the ground, pure methane up in the northern tier. Actually, Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania, is the number 1 natural gas producing county in America. It's not in Texas, it's not in Louisiana, it's not in Oklahoma, it's in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is the number 2 natural gas producing state in America, behind only Texas. And again, because in Texas, harvesting natural gas is ancillary to petroleum production, that it's entirely possible that in the near future that Pennsylvania will be number 1 if our decision makers in Harrisburg commit to a pro-growth, pro-production agenda for Pennsylvania energy. Coterra has also pointed to the future with their investment in Lackawanna College and their School of Oil and Gas. That Coterra has endowed that institution to train the folks, to give them the skills to enable them to take up these really good paying family sustaining jobs up on the northern tier. And, as I see it in miniature, this is our way forward. There are tremendous jobs, tremendous careers that are available in the skilled trades and manufacturing that are going unfilled. In Pennsylvania, at any point, there are about 6,000 open manufacturing positions. The number's probably higher than that since the pandemic. And also that doesn't even factor in the employers who've essentially stopped looking, who've stopped, okay, I'm not gonna be able to expand past current scale of operations. So it's just, let's try to keep the current operation staffed. But in terms of what is happening in the Marcellus and what is possible, this year, Royal Dutch Shell, and I'm sorry, there's an interim pointing to make. Okay, talking about the northern tier, gas comes out of the ground, pure methane. In the far west of Pittsburgh, out in Washington County, the natural gas, the methane, comes out of the ground with a lot of other chemicals, pentane, butane, propane, natural gasoline. And that these chemicals are manufacturing feedstocks. We can make stuff out of those inputs, and that the investment by Royal Dutch Shell in an ethylene facility, an $8 billion ethylene facility, is going to come online this year. It's going to go operational. And again, what are they doing? They're taking the ethane gas, they're cracking a hydrogen molecule off of it, which is why they call it a cracker plant, turning it to ethylene, to polyethylene, tiny little plastic pellets smaller than an aspirin. But that plastic, depending on how you process it, can yield every kind of plastic, styrofoam, rubber, paint, glaze, coating, solvent, adhesive inputs to every consumer good, every product that you and I purchase and handle and use every day. Again, there's an economic reason for people who use that feedstock to want to be close to the source of it. Again, investing in Pennsylvania.
And when you think about what Dave's laying out, again, we've all been to the Commonwealth, big rectangle in that sense, but we've talked about the northern tier and we talked about Western Pennsylvania, but we're here. And again, from Katie's standpoint, that's the opportunity to bring this home, because the Marcellus doesn't underlie Berks. You're not seeing natural gas production. Companies like Coterra or Southwestern or others aren't operating here. So, Katie, from your standpoint, you're seeing this develop elsewhere, but it still makes a major impact. So if you could pick up on that, because again, I know the conversation we had about how, again, not only the county, but your office, what they're doing from a global standpoint, but also right here.
Sure thing. Thanks, George. So Katie Hetherington Cunfer, I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations for the Greater Reading Chamber Alliance. And by way of background, I spent a couple of years at State Department of Environmental Protection as External Affairs Director under Corbyn and under Wolf. So I managed to survive some political transitions. So I play well with others is essentially the theme here. Yes. So the conversation that I had with George was really kind of focusing on we're not producing gas here, but we're using gas here. We're using energy here. So when you think about Berks County, everybody thinks about pretzels. This is so Unique Pretzels. They're good friends of ours. They think about the pretzel. So I'm a 7th generation farm kid. They think about agriculture. And those are kind of the main themes that you think about when you think about this county. But that's actually a misnomer. The really big things kind of going on in Berks County are manufacturing. That's our biggest employer. That's our #1 industry in the county, and that's what's driving a lot of our economy. So a lot of folks kind of, you see this and you see these pictures, and these are great. And this is manufacturing, and this ultimately becomes manufacturing. But that's what our big drivers are here in the county. And so we're on the receiving end of the cost of energy. We are the users of that energy. We are the ones who are converting these products into other products. And so when we have input costs that are rising through the roof, you look at the gas pump right now and it's obscene. We are stuck with that problem. And I say we're stuck in that we're on the receiving end, but our job is to communicate why that's a problem and why we're seeing these issues, why these input costs are having an effect on our businesses. So I know, Dave, you talked about the number of openings in the manufacturing sector. Just as an example, East Penn, they have 500 positions open right now. They'd hire more than that 500 if they could find them. But they have about 500 positions open right now, and it's on second and third shift, but they're trying desperately to find those positions. And so in that situation where they can't find the positions that they're looking for, they can't find the folks, they're now turning to automation. And everybody is. So you're looking at a situation where you're trying to find what can you do to enhance your business as well as maintain the folks you have on staff. But automation takes energy. That, to build it, to maintain it, to operate it, that's all a use system as well. So we're in this situation where we are now faced with policies that are being decided on by other folks. I actually read a really great piece yesterday. It was Mark Thiessen, and it was in the Washington Post. And it's an opinion piece, but I think it's relatively accurate. So the conversation was about the Biden administration policies and how we are having conversations about inflation, and we're having conversations about what's going on with Putin and the geopolitical space. But some of this is being conveniently adopted to move us to a situation where it is cost prohibitive to use fossil fuels. It feels like it is a purposeful march. And the president has said so much in that the hopeful goal of this is to convert everyone to electric vehicles. And that may be great, but it's not today. We don't have the capacity. We don't have the vehicles. We don't have the batteries. We don't have the electricity grid to handle that right now. So, this conversation point where everybody needs to move towards this, I'll be open and honest. I've signed up to try to get myself a hybrid vehicle, and I might get it in October. And I had to go to a different state to order it. So this is a situation where you're telling everybody, oh, it's easy, just do this, just convert. It's not. Dave talked about the cost of ammonia. So I'm a 7th generation farm kid. I grew up on a produce farm. My husband and I now operate a beef cattle farm. To get synthetic fertilizer right now, you have to offer up a kidney. It is insanely expensive. Some of that has to do with the fact that a lot of our fertilizer production is actually in the Ukraine and in Russia. And it's just because we have made those decisions based on source and by cost, as well as potash. That's another big input for fertilizer. We actually have a very interesting dichotomy because with the Chesapeake Bay here in Pennsylvania, we actually have an overload of manure, which is good because it actually helps to supplement the synthetic fertilizer need, but it's also a glut in our waterways. They don't have that in Iowa. They need synthetic fertilizer. They need that in the breadbasket of the U.S. And it's cost prohibitive to transport manure to those communities. So they need to have fertilizer created. We're now in a situation where it is a national security program. It's not only from a manufacturing side, but our food security. We talk about having these famine issues. It really is now we're in a situation, if anybody has read, that there are other countries that are now stockpiling and or saying they're not going to adhere to agreements to ship wheat or corn. They are holding back. I think it was India who made it a very apparent agreement that they're going to hold back what they have. And there are other nations who don't produce that. We benefit that we do produce that. Just 2 weeks ago, Pennsylvania was designated as the #2 state in the country for direct-to-consumer agriculture. So we have an abundance of riches here nearby, but there are others that don't. So our job in this whole process is, while we are uncomfortable with paying for what we have in terms of the prices at the gas pump, and we're uncomfortable with some of the input prices, we also have to keep track of what's going on in the geopolitical sphere, because there are going to be other nations that are going to need these resources, the things that we produce, the things that we create, that right now they are actually being held hostage by several of these policies. And that's either by design or that's by they don't have the same resources that we do. So the conversation that we were having especially was focusing on the Ukraine issue. And so other fun fact for the area, so Cunfer County, just to our north, is the first location of the Ukrainian Catholic Church in America. There is a higher percentage of folks with Ukrainian Catholic Ukrainian heritage per population in the majority of the communities in Schuylkill County than anywhere else in the country. So this is actually a now friends and neighbors conversation when we talk about what's going on with the world and helping out our other countries. But we are also facing a situation where we need this energy, we need this production. There are policies that are being put in place by the administration that are purposefully shutting it down. I love how both the president as well as the governor's administration has the conversation about, well, they need to use these 9,000 leases. And if companies don't use those 9,000 leases, they're greedy, they're not helping the process. Well, if you tell the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to not approve permits and to not approve distribution centers, it's real hard to tell somebody to drill for natural gas or for petroleum, because you're not going to make that 20, 30, 40-year investment on a maybe 5-year time window. So we have this situation now where there are purposeful policies being put in place that are blocking that ability. The other piece that kind of brings it back to Pennsylvania is there have been promises made on the world stage with trying to get natural gas and petroleum to our friends and allies. So just yesterday, the European Union decided that they're going to cut petroleum inputs or imports from Russia by half by 2023. So then the following headline behind that was, this week is the calm before the storm on gas prices. So hopefully everybody filled up yesterday. So we'll see $5 gas pretty quick here, but that's markets being what they are. We are making these promises on the world stage to try to help our friends while shortchanging ourselves. We are now looking to other nations to backfill what we are making promises on. But Pennsylvania specifically is being hampered by that because we have the play that we do. But we don't have the capacity built and or coming online because of policies blocking that ability. So we should have a much more robust pipeline infrastructure than what we do. I was at the department when our friends had pipelines blocked in both here and in the north by other states. And even though that we had federal administrations that were supportive of it, our neighboring states were actually purposefully blocking it. We have the Delaware River Basin Commission who blocked the exploration for gas in Wayne and Pike counties. And yes, I understand where they came from on the decision, but that was 5 other states telling Pennsylvania what we could or could not do with our private property rights. And that's a problem. So we're now in a situation where we, who have the heritage, have the connection, have the desire to help support those nations that are asking for our help, we don't have the infrastructure to do it. So the benefit to meeting those requirements, that's going to go to Texas. It's going to go to Louisiana because they're ahead of us on pipeline development. And we lose again. So we have this ability to kind of meet these needs, and we're not meeting it because of the policies we're seeing put in place. So the next kind of question point is, what do we do with some of this? So I always talk about with our members on, so Representative Joswiak is here, and I'll call him out, and Guy Shiraki, who's running for Congress, is here. They're our friends. They're here because they agree with this message, and they're with us on this. We have to engage with those folks who don't. It might be painful, it might be awkward, but we have to. And we have to tell it from the standpoint of, here is how the policy decision that you support, the policy decision that you make affects my business, affects my employees, affects your constituents. This is why we don't have people working. This is why we have job situations. This is why we can't expand our business. We can't expand our tax base. We can't put more into the Pennsylvania economy. So those conversations have to be happening with people who currently don't agree with us. And it's not happening enough because it is uncomfortable. So I encourage that with everybody here, branch out and talk to people who aren't necessarily our friends, but do have a vote and do need to hear what's going on with our economy and our community.
And Katie, to really build upon that, that is the idea of why we want you to think about energy. As silly as it is, it's that important to really look at decisions that are being made elsewhere, how it's affecting you. People have given up too much because we do have a quality of life that has come to us, but it's given to us through energy development, energy utilization. Again, when you think about a third world country, what are they missing? They're missing energy development. Now, from our standpoint at Coterra, and David mentioned this, we're a dry natural gas play. When you have dry natural gas, the ability to make ammonia is very easy. So when you think about a 7th generation farmer who can't get ammonia, who needs these feedstocks, we have them right here. But it would take you, not you personally, but us collectively, to say we're going to actually encourage energy development. And for too long, energy development was somebody else's problem. We moved that offshore. That's why cost became such an issue. Yes, David.
I was just going to add one point in support of what Katie was saying, which is that there's a brighter future that's ours if we're willing to do the work to claim it. And it's within our power to make things right. There's an investment coming, $6 billion in Luzerne County by a company called Nacero to take Pennsylvania dry natural gas. They're going to turn it into sulfur-free vehicle fuel for both surface sea transport, but also for cars. And you don't have to retrofit your car. You can put it in the tank just the way that you do today. This is a huge investment. This was made possible by Act 66 of the previous session, which was a production-based tax credit for using the value chain from the methane. And again, there's no good reason why, under these conditions, that Pennsylvania shouldn't be home to the kind of ammonia production that would secure, it would help to enhance American food security by giving American farmers domestically produced chemical fertilizers.
And we will move it. We will move it for any of the producers. So UGI Energy Services, who I work for, part of the UGI family of companies, homegrown right here, Berks County. We're located in Wyomissing. We have over 400 employees. We're in the old knitting mills. We just moved there right before COVID struck. And so, we're all still kind of getting used to the office. But, one of the things that we want to talk about is what we are doing to enhance the growth that is occurring in Berks County and within the region, because we see it so dramatically. Obviously, our utility, which I'm sure serves many, if not everyone in this room, they understand the pressures and the growth on their system. And we have a couple of facilities, UGI Energy Services, which again is the midstream and the marketing company within the family of companies. We have a couple of facilities in Berks County, but there's one in particular that I want to really kind of concentrate on today, because I think it's pretty unique to what we're all talking about and how it kind of fills this void. And it serves not only the local distribution system here in Berks County, but also the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. And it's called our Temple LNG, liquefied natural gas facility, and it's located in, wait for it, Temple. We're very unique, and creative about coming up with names. But this particular facility can vaporize 205,000 decatherms a day. All right, so we can store over 1 million gallons of liquid natural gas. We then can reliquefy and truck out, if we're not putting the re-vaporized gas into a pipeline system, we can truck, and this is why it's so important to filling this niche that we're talking about, because as everyone was saying, policies, whether or not they're legislative or regulatory policies, have real life impact. And there, my friends, the pipeline system before Ukraine, before where we are today, was full, is full. There's not enough, as George well knows. He would like to produce more. We would like to move more for Coterra, and we fortunately move a lot of their gas. We can't. There's just not enough room in the pipes. There's not. So this facility, the Temple facility, is serving the need, the growth that Katie talked about, and she didn't even start talking about the potential growth and expansion that we have if the passenger rail opportunity comes through, right?
Working on it.
Yeah. I mean, that's exciting. That's wonderful. But there are energy needs around that. And so this facility is able to feed the local distribution system for the growth that Katie's talking about. We're able to go into, and we have other facilities similar, but not this big. Not the facility we have in Berks County and Temple is our largest LNG facility. And we truck regularly in the winter to the Mid-Atlantic and to New England because they have a lot of people living up there and they like gas. They don't have it because of the policies that are in place in those states. Again, trying to push everybody. I don't have really cool toys, but that's a picture of our Temple facility. And you'll see we're not exclusive to just natural gas. We have solar facilities. We will play and we'll move into solar when it makes sense, when the technology is there, when the markets give us the right signals, not when there are free handouts, subsidies.
If I could please make an important point on this. So domestic security, control of our own fate, our own future. These technologies with solar panels and wind turbines require the use of certain strategic minerals. These minerals, we do not mine enough of them in this country. They're largely mined overseas, a lot of it in China. The People's Republic of China dominates the processing and refinement of those minerals. We don't do any of that refining here in the US at all. Even if we mine those strategic minerals here in the US, we have to ship the ore to China to have them process it and buy it back. So by becoming dependent on these technologies where we do not control the inputs, we are putting our energy future in the hands of foreign powers. It's a deeply unwise thing.
And to dovetail on that, we've learned that lesson through semiconductors.
Yes.
So that is the next industry to have that conversation about that we're trying to fix about 10 years too late.
Yes, exactly.
And George works for a company, and he's all too familiar with a little project called Constitution pipeline that didn't go anywhere. And I'm personally still in therapy because of the PennEast pipeline project that who knew you could go to the United States Supreme Court, win, and still have a very well-funded opposition and other states saying who need gas, whose utilities have said, on a really cold day, we might not have enough to serve our customers. Think about, the elderly who, and often, you're in the Northeast and you have old housing stock that is not well insulated. Electric furnaces do not work as well in colder climates. They don't. It's just
Heat pump.
Well, and again, if we're going to electrify everything, we're going to need to expand the grid, and we're going to need new transmission lines. The Greens oppose the transmission lines. So it's a no-win situation.
And we're looking at already so today is June 1st. Today is the magic day where a lot of our energy friends have had to raise prices on what you're buying. And that is from the standpoint of they are improving the grids. They are looking at reliability. They have inputs that they need to meet. And there's no one happy about paying for that bill. Well, if we're going to start having a situation where everyone has a vehicle at their home to plug in, or 2 or 3, we don't have an energy grid that can meet that right now. That's going to cost us in terms of fortifying the grid to even get to that point.
And I don't know if anybody's looked outside or spent much time outside the last couple of days. It's hot.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of wind moving out there. In the last week, now this is a national statistic, not necessarily just within the PJM market, wind nationally produced less than 10% of our electricity. Natural gas will always be available if we have the capacity and the infrastructure to get it to our electric generation facilities, but it will step up and has been stepping up, and it's produced over 36% of our electricity needs nationally. It's about that, a little higher actually in Pennsylvania. But again, the market is going to respond to the constraints that are within the pipeline system and the inability to move product. And it's really important, as Dave and Katie have been saying, as we're looking at what's happening overseas and we're trying to fulfill our commitment and we're trying to bring back and reshore a lot of manufacturing, we're going to need more sustainable, reliable energy.
So the challenge we have in this room is, and I see so many familiar faces, so I apologize for me preaching to the choir because that's what I feel like we're doing. But the reality is we do need to branch out. We need to take the time to have this conversation and then get fortified with information to carry forward. When Pam talks about PennEast being denied, she also referenced Constitution. Constitution would have been a pipeline that would have left Susquehanna County. If you're familiar with Susquehanna County, we're on the New York border. You live in Susquehanna, you might actually live in Binghamton, New York. We're that close. But a decision was made less than 8 years ago to deny the movement of gas from Susquehanna County into New England. I bring this up because Pam's most recent decision, I apologize, the most recent decision that affected Pam on PennEast is the denial of moving natural gas.
What we're Governor of New Jersey, by the New Jersey state government.
What we're trying to get across in this conversation is the fuel, the resource is plentiful. The needs locally are here. But if we don't get engaged to have the conversation, I refer to as we get stuck on stupid. We make the same mistake over and over and over again. And the denial for PennEast is no different than the denial of Constitution. Now, amazingly, Coterra, in 28 days from production in natural gas in Susquehanna County, 28 days from the ground, it's to a burner tip in Japan. We can ship natural gas from Susquehanna County through a series of safe pipelines to Cove Point, get it through the Panama Canal 28 days later.
The challenge for
I'm gonna hold on now. You're taking you're stealing my thunder, sir. It would take me 28 hours to get it to New England.
I can't.
And I can't. I understand that there is a role and a goal to decarbonize our climate. And I hear what's being discussed here, and I know we have a large battery manufacturer right here in Berks. But the challenge is you don't make things from electricity. This gets lost on the electrification of our economy. How much manure is making from electricity? Yeah.
Well, biomass digesters, but Costs $3 million a pop every time you build one.
So it's not a question of we just want to promote fossil fuels at the expense of others. It's a combination of having the right policies in place to allow for where electricity can be generated from your rooftop. It makes absolute sense. If you're a parking facility, if you're a large mall, absolutely. Put solar in, it makes sense. There are wind areas that it makes sense for for wind to be there. They're just not the dominant energy source. And as David and others have said, you're not going to mine the critical minerals out of those. So that's the issue of when you really stop and think about it. Decarbonization can happen, hydrogen production can happen, and other pieces, but it's going to happen with companies like UGI Energy Services being successful here.
And I would just add to what George has said is that he moves through the midstream system, natural gas very safely. All of us within the industry, regardless of whether or not you're upstream, midstream, or downstream, as our sister company is, a utility to the manufacturers, we're all working, all of you are working to do this in a very safe, environmentally sustainable manner. And I'm really proud. I just have to share a couple of statistics because I'm so proud of our guys and across all of our company. But we're really, we take very seriously our commitment to be good neighbors wherever our assets are located. And just our fiscal year to date, safety statistics, lost OSHA recordables, 0. Accountable accident rates, that includes people like me, who I'm just driving from my house back and forth, not doing anything like apparently super dangerous. 1.39. Our lost work days, 0. It's our goal to make our employees, keep our employees safe, keep our contractors safe, and the communities where we're located. Because we don't have, you're our license to operate. As we've seen, policies and opposition really have an impact on whether or not we get to locate in certain places to then be able to fulfill sort of the manufacturing needs and the economic growth and the lifestyle that we've all become accustomed.
George, I'm sorry for butting in. I get too excited about this stuff.
What I'm going to do is real fast. We're going to roll to your questions next. So please, if you have some, think of them. Dan, if you don't, I'm going to call on you first. So now you're already warned. I'm sorry, you're right there. You're wearing pink. I can see you like that. So you're next, but go ahead.
Just one last thought. I mean, George talked about export of LNG through Cove Point, Maryland, which is awesome. The problem is that Cove Point is maxed out.
Oh, yes.
So it's a paradox that because of the idiocy in New York and New Jersey, it creates an opportunity for Pennsylvania to supercharge our own economy with these Pennsylvania resources, untold trillions of cubic feet of natural gas. And so there's no reason other than politics and willpower why we couldn't have an LNG terminal on the Delaware River. And in so doing, we're creating wealth, we're increasing the op tempo of energy harvesting, all those jobs at the steel mill and the rolling mill, and for our LIUNA guys, our pipeliners, our operating engineers, Pennsylvania jobs all the way down, creating wealth, exporting LNG to Europe. It's a whole lot closer to Europe from Philadelphia than Corpus Christi. And again, strengthening America on the world stage. All these things are possible if only we have the focus and the will.
Now is your chance. Wow, you want to make it hard on that? Yes, sir.
So I have a radical question.
Yeah, so this is a radical question. All right.
So New York apparently generates 60% of their electricity from gas. New York's blocking the pipes. And nearly all that money, all that gas is being purchased from Pennsylvania. And that's a boom for Pennsylvania, for you guys. But how do we force New York to put the pipes in? And I guess my question is, do we cut off their supply of gas, make the people lose their electric and raise cane with the governor and demand a pipe? I mean, that's a radical way to do it, but you got to people.
It's certainly an interesting question.
I'm gonna come right back to you. But for those of you who may not heard online, the question has to do with the idea that New York is such a dominant user of natural gas, yet they're also a dominant stopper of pipelines. What do we do with that conundrum between them willing to use it themselves but stop pipelines? And what would be some of the, to your point, practical ways in which we could open up that market?
Yeah, I think it's a multi-layered issue, and there's no, easy answer. First, it's not our gas. It's owned by, the property owner, the mineral rights owner who enters into a lease. And the rules at the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, we can contract with certain, operators. But once we do that, we have to move it. And really, I think one of the biggest issues is in the Federal Clean Water Act, which, has ability under Section 401 for states to essentially have a veto under what they can say is it doesn't meet their water quality standards. And so that's what they're putting.
They impose a standard that can't be met.
Yes.
And use this pocket veto.
Right. And so, it's really, unfortunately, I think some of the ways we could put some pressure on, and we've done this in the past, is like through not funding DRBC, who is also, part of this problem. Because, we're one of the 5 states that participate in that. But, again, it's really, I think, it's more of a federal issue that is kind of getting in the way than necessarily.
I'm going to go to Katie with the middle, though. Yeah.
Well, and I will say, Representative, that by Pennsylvania entering into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI, that may end up happening. It's just we didn't benefit from it. We may be in a situation where gas isn't flowing, and it's because we're literally being forced to sit on it because of that agreement that we're in with those other states who can now, same as with DRBC and other compacts, make those decisions for us because we are now only one vote. So in our absence, you'll either get Ohio, West Virginia, who are, but they're not us, or other nations being the supply. And here we sit 28 hours away, as opposed to getting it from places that have less environmentally protective standards, less rigorous requirements for permitting, and specific goals as to what they use that money for, which might inflict pain on other countries. So we're stuck in a loop.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the point has been sort of alluded to. The federal matter is that both New York and New Jersey, through these actions, are in violation of the Constitution's Interstate Commerce Clause. That they are impeding commerce between the states, which is the whole reason why the Commerce Clause exists. And so I think that a federal lawsuit, I would assume that the Pennsylvania General Assembly would have standing, that we need to sue in federal court against those states that they are in violation of the Interstate Commerce Clause, and then have worked that way up. And if the U.S. Supreme Court would rule in our favor, that would break the logjam.
Question there.
Start here. We're going to go there next, Jeff.
You wanted to know what kind of pay you want to give these people to make them relent on pipeline permitting? Well, when the New Yorkers start paying triple for their heating bills this winter, which we will too. I mean, June rolled off the NYMEX board at almost $9. That's a 300+% increase in the cost of natural gas because we don't have pipeline permits. So when they start feeling that pain, that might be a little bit faster than that lawsuit, but both of them are important. I have a question. Do you find it interesting that nobody wants to talk about the carbon footprint of electric automobiles.
For those online, if you could not hear, right, the carbon footprint of electric vehicles is what's being discussed now.
And because, okay, you buy a Tesla has a 1,000-pound battery in it. That battery is full of all those strategic minerals that I talked about that we don't have enough of in this country. We don't process at all. To get that 1,000-pound battery, you have to process 500,000 pounds of ore. And again, that doesn't happen with, in your backyard with a little hoe or a little digger. Like, it takes massive amounts of industrial activity to derive and process that much ore.
Jack?
Yeah, so this question, I guess, first is.
Hold on one second. We're going to move the microphone. There you go.
So I guess the question first is directed at Pam, but then I'd love to get the rest of the panel's insights. So UGI has made a massive investment in renewable natural gas. Mm-hmm. I guess I'm kind of curious as to how does that juggle sort of investor ESG trends, but then it's still successfully meeting market and customer needs and demands and wants.
Yeah.
A little bit of insight into some of those recent
Sure.
moves. Yeah.
Yeah. So renewable natural gas, for anyone here, I'm sure almost everyone here in this room knows what it is. I like to say it's poop. It's renewable natural gas quickly is just as anything that's organic that breaks down under anaerobic conditions. And we have made massive investments, as Jack has alluded to, across the country to, again, to reduce our footprint, because we are trying to be sustainable and responsive to investors who are, quite frankly, pushing in that direction. But we're doing it without governments telling us we have to do it. We're doing it because we understand it's the right thing. Renewable natural gas, I don't think, and maybe if any of my folks are listening, they'll tell me I'm wrong. It isn't going to replace natural gas, but it's an opportunity to have it as part of the mix, just like solar and others. It's part of the mix. There's no one fuel source that's going to, I believe, roll the day. It's also beneficial to the agricultural community, because what we're giving back to them, one, we're doing all of the investment for the anaerobic digesters. We are building the other infrastructure that's associated with it. If there's excess, they can use it on site. But we're also, very importantly, giving them back the actual fertilizer they want without the solids that they're concerned about running into the Chesapeake Bay or the Delaware River. So it's a kind of a win-win, and we can move it, then have the environmental attributes that we can sell into the low carbon fuel standard that's out in California.
Yeah, and so talking about the renewable side, so it doesn't come from these kind of cows, because their manure doesn't work as well. So this is Black Angus, but it does come from others, or for poultry and from other animals. But there is, for the farmer side of the investment, it's a huge investment to put in one of those facilities. And many folks that you talk to, they would put in more capacity, they would put in more engines, but what they get on the energy side, what they get on the utility side, doesn't make up the cost of what it would take to even run those facilities. So there is some imbalance in some of that energy market right now. But when you have other companies coming in to help make that investment, that is a big help to try to goose that. There's also food waste, and doing it with landfills. That's the ability to get that gas off of there and to better utilize wasted food is something that is really beneficial. I was with a farmer a couple weekends ago. An interesting fun fact: these biodigesters are very, very finicky. They like certain things, they don't like other things. They got a truckload of oat milk, oat juice, and it actually killed the digester. The bugs in the digester didn't like it, and the digester had to be restarted. So there are some foods they don't like, but it is something that we can utilize better, as opposed to filling our landfills full of these products getting them into digesters, getting them into those situations and getting the energy off of them is a benefit for everyone.
And I think, again, it emphasizes the importance of market-based solutions. And, again, as a manufacturer, as a manufacturing advocate, we're agnostic in many ways about how the electrons get into the grid. Somebody could invent cold fusion tomorrow, and I would be for that. But as it stands right now today, with Pennsylvania sitting on trillions of recoverable cubic feet of natural gas, these are the assets that we have right here, right now, today. And until and unless somebody comes up with something better, you go with what you have.
In the very back, because I believe you traveled the furthest to get here, is what Rudy is telling me.
I'm David Butterworth, I'm Pike Miners Local 798. Pam, we've worked together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We've been getting beat on everything. Like I've advocated since 2016. I was talking to Kurt here, Mariner East, Atlantic Sunrise, and we were winning for a while. And she mentioned about, sorry, I didn't catch your name, but she mentioned about talking to them and engaging them. I did. I tried it for a while and it didn't work. I mean, it's literally, David Marshall with me in Pennsylvania at the State House when they started screaming, code red for climate, yada, yada, yada. My thing is, and I'm noticing my guys will sign signatures. We got 2,500 on the REA. We just had a nationwide 12 review where we got 1,500 signatures. My folks are starting to wane. It's getting to where we're just losing. We're taking it on the chin, one after the other after the other. And when Mountain Valley and ACP were going and they got shut down, we had some momentum. I'm just wondering what we can do to get that momentum back, because it's downhill right now and it's tough sledding. I'm right there in the trenches and have been for 7 years now. And I hate it, but I think it's going to take significant events to happen to where people go with energy shortages and their utilities bill double and they get tired of it. And then, maybe the people that don't realize where their energy comes from will come back to see, hey, this is common sense stuff here. But right now it's tough. I mean, I got work, but I don't have enough we went from 8,500 members to 6,800 in 4 years. It's tough out there, but, the engaging of the other side, boy, I did try. I know you did. And it doesn't, boy, they don't want to hear what I got to say. So if y'all can figure that one out, I'm sure I know that's pretty broad, but.
It's one of the, I'm sorry, Dave, because I am in therapy with this.
I'm in therapy you got one job, I got like 10.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things that I struggle with is, it's become, we've talked about this, a couple of us, it's become a religion. The opposition has kind of taken on this religious kind of coat around them. And I do think that, there will be pain points that are going to come that will, kind of hopefully wake people up. But I think again, it goes back to policies that legislators and regulators put in place that we're bearing the bitter fruit of.
I told the Corps of Engineers last week, I said, you got to pick between a broken grid, the chaos of a broken grid, or the chaos of climate change. Which one do you all want to pick?
And it doesn't have to be that.
That's where it's at.
Because you're looking at natural gas, which has reduced the carbon footprint in Pennsylvania, reduced our carbon emissions more than other countries.
Yeah.
We are doing it. We're meeting our environmental standards and what we should be doing, and we're leading the world in some instances on this. So there's nothing for us to be ashamed about or ashamed for in using natural gas. But I do think as far, you can change some regulations and some policies, but we also have to look at how the legal system is set up as well. And, tighten some of those rules.
Get rid of the Fourth Circuit.
Well, it could be that.
Wouldn't hurt. I'm going to address one of the points, and again, I get it. I clearly the comment about how it beats you down.
Yeah.
And
Well, I won't quit, but I'm just saying, I'm noticing, we get signatures like for ACP, we've had 4,000 or 5,000 signatures. And when the DEQ went to the water board to get the permit approved, they used that number and said, we got 6,500 for, 3,000 against. That's how important they are. But I'm just having trouble keeping my members engaged. We're losing so much. And now, I mean, that was very disappointing. We just did an action for the nationwide 12 review, which is, an attempt to slow that process down. And I only got 1,800, and we were asking and twittering and doing everything we knew how to do, and it still only come up with 1,800. So I'm just worried that as an industry, we're going to start to wane. We need to not do that. I mean, and
that's the best takeaway, though. I mean, and I hear what you're saying, because that is the best takeaway, that we cannot wane.
Right.
We do have to really step up to the moment, because the numbers do matter. And,
right.
Pam referenced, others who have a more, maybe a religious fervor to themselves. That's the piece that we have to regain. You mentioned some of the pipelines that worked, Mariner and Atlantic Sunrise.
Yep.
The upside of those two projects, they were in one state.
Right.
They were in our Commonwealth.
Right.
When we start entering into needing our neighbors to help us, that's where we drop off.
Right.
And it's New York, it's New Jersey. Those
Virginia
are
even now.
I'm hearing you.
Yeah.
I'm watching what's happening in the fourth, but the goal is to make certain that you have good information to share.
Right.
Get the success stories out and not just have the negative stories, because they're there. But we definitely have to continue to make the fight.
You're not fighting facts with facts, because they don't have facts. That's what's messed up in the country. But anyway,
I would agree.
And I will say, so, and I'm with you on fighting the good fight. I've actually been doing it since I was a little kid with my family. So upside of a very negative thing of COVID is people finally figured out where stuff comes from.
Right.
Because they couldn't get it. So eyeballs are open on supply chain, on process, on distribution. And the attention in the national tide is turning on, we're now seeing these policies, and this is hurting me. This is hurting my bottom line. This is hurting my ability to buy things and have, we're getting to a point where everybody's going to have, the buying power is slowing because the amount of savings that you built up over COVID is starting to dwindle down. So it's going to have a flip with inflation. So I think this is the prime time to have those conversations about, you're seeing it. These policies that you didn't pay attention to beforehand or didn't think were going to be a problem are here. And this is what is occurring. This is what is making this a reality. We see that, especially there's conversations in the food distribution sector. The cost of regulation, the cost of distribution, the cost of labor is making it so that those facilities can't operate. We're seeing it with our own, heavy manufacturing, where the cost of regulation is making it oppressive to be able to be in operation. So I think you're seeing people starting to wake up a little bit to that, and they're figuring out the fact that this is flipped upside down, that it used to just be an on-demand thing, and now it's not as easy as it was.
And I know that we've passed our time.
We passed our
right?
time. We have.
But may
yes.
I make one
yes,
last
please.
comment?
Yes, ma'am. Closing remark.
We talked about preaching to the choir, but I think one thing that we should take away, in addition to talking to our friends and neighbors, is elections matter. And thank you to Representative Joswiak, who is here, who's been, who's been at least willing to listen. That's the important thing. We need elected officials who are willing to listen to us and be willing to learn.
And I would just say that we need a new political consensus, that we need to have a pro-jobs, pro-production consensus. And I think that as Katie said, the economic realities that are coming, that are upon us already, are going to increase that. But I mean, there are two different things that have happened simultaneously. Number one, the workforce crisis. That has made the employer community much more appreciative of our skilled tradesmen and workers, and that also this attack on industrial activity by the radical Greens, I think has shown our hard hat workers that whatever friction there is with management, at least they agree that job, that industrial activity should occur. And to have a pro-growth, pro-production agenda for hard hat jobs for working people, like that needs to be the new political consensus that we all need to fight for.
And
Hey,
so,
we're at your home, so.
sure. And so I bring out my props for what is Berks County. We also had the conversation about, this is heavy manufacturing. So 75% of the battery production for automotive batteries is here in Berks County. People don't realize that. So when you think about Berks County, you might think this, which is great, but you should think this. You should think this. I raided my daughter's toy box this morning. You should think big trucks, because Berks County is on your roads. Berks County is in your vehicle. Taking it, harnessing it, and putting it in these vehicles that you use on a daily basis. This gets you the construction. This gets you the raw materials you need. This gets you the food that you're a friend of. So this is what Berks County is bringing to the table. So we need to make sure that we can continue to have this manufacturing and these processes here, because it is literally powering the rest of our world.
They're all made with petroleum.
Yes, they are all made with petroleum, and many of them make noises, so I'm not going to touch them.
Well, I want to thank you all for being here. I also want to thank those who are online. Based on the question that came up, we will be able to send information to everyone who registered in regards to a voter toolkit, as well as information that you could share with others. Again, that'll be sent to you via email. I want to thank the panelists for their time. Thank you all. And it wouldn't go far for those of you that know Rudy, that today's event really is a testament to your perseverance. I think it was 3+ years that you fought for this event, and then COVID happened. But again, Rudy, yourself, NTEC overall, thank you very much for doing this. It truly is Energy Day in Berks County today. I'm excited for the lunch opportunity. I'm excited for a laugh and learn tonight. But thank you, Rudy. Thank you, NTEC, for hosting us today and making this a successful event. Thank you. Oh, yeah.